Greetings. Thank you for joining us today for EarthEcho's STEMExplore Virtual Career Connection featuring Aditi Jayarajan, bat biologist and PhD student at the University of Florida and Florida Museum in Gainesville, Florida. My name is Casey. I'm a programs manager here at EarthEcho International. We are joined today by one of our exceptional Youth Leadership Council members, Olivia, and she's going to help me moderate this live event. Here at EarthEcho International, we're proud to work with an outstanding group of young leaders who help drive our work to empower their peers around the globe to take an active role in protecting our planet. And Olivia is a great example of this. Olivia is an integrative biology PhD student at the University of South Florida, where she is both a fellow of the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship and the University of South Florida Presidential Fellowship. Olivia currently studies jellyfish and loves to go to the beach and dance in her spare time. Take it away, Olivia.
Thanks, Casey. We are so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn about exciting and sustainable careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. This live event is part of STEMExplore, EarthEcho's program that brings inspiration to life by telling the stories of dynamic female professionals in STEM careers during live virtual career connections. We want to thank our founding sponsor, United Technologies, for their support of women in STEM. Here at EarthEcho, we believe that youth have the power to change the planet. Visit earthecho.org to learn more about our programs. You can also access resources like STEMExplore's career profile videos, as well as tune in for our upcoming live events, just like this one. I'd like to recognize and thank STEMExplore's partner sites across the country and recognize those that are joining us today. First, let's head to Charlotte, North Carolina and get a hello from MECED. Hello, MECED.
Hi.
Now let's head across the US to Santa Clarita, California to say hello to our friends at the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley. Hello, Sierra Vista Clubhouse.
Hey.
It's so great to have you guys with us. We also want to welcome all that have joined us on our live streams. Just a reminder that you can send in questions for our STEM expert via chat, and we will break throughout today's presentation to see if you have any questions. Feel free to start typing questions in the chat space on YouTube or in the Zoom feed. We'll be sure to answer those as we go along. Now let's get started. I want to welcome our special guest for EarthEcho STEMExplore Virtual Career Connection, Aditi Jayarajan. Good afternoon, Adita.
Hey, how's it going?
It's so great to have you.
Thank
Aditi
you.
is interested in the themes of evolutionary biology and population genetics. Her current research is focused on bat populations in the Caribbean islands. Aditi uses fossil data, morphology, and genetics in order to advance our understanding of how populations are structured and how they evolve over time. In the past, Aditi has worked at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, India. Her research was focused on examining the factors which impact distribution and diversification patterns of frogs, lizards, and snakes across the Western Ghats in India. Recently, Aditi has been working with scientists in every Florida school, a program whose mission is to build long-term collaborative relationships between teachers and scientists to better integrate current scientific research and big data into classroom lessons that adhere to Florida Sunshine State standards. Aditi also loves photographing the natural world and thinking about science. Aditi, why don't you tell us more about what you do?
Hey, thanks so much. So basically, I study island systems. And I've been studying island systems in the Caribbean islands, which is really close to Florida. Over here on the slide, you can see like how close Florida is to the Bahamas. And basically, I get to go to these beautiful islands and see these really turquoise, clear blue waters and these beautiful white sandy beaches, and I study bats in them. So basically, when you're looking at these beautiful views, you can see how these islands are affected by climate change and how the Earth's rising and falling sea levels have affected these islands. Bats are pretty much the only mammals that can fly. And even though they can fly, they tend to be very, very affected by things like humans. And so I've had the chance to study these bats in these really spectacular locations. And usually when people think of it, they're not thinking that I'm looking at bats on islands.
Now, Didi, why don't you tell us more about yourself? Where did you grow up?
So that's a great question. I grew up in Bangalore, India, which is located halfway across the world. Basically, I have had my schooling over there. I did my bachelor's in microbiology, chemistry, and zoology. And I have done my master's in microbiology as well. I started working in a lab where I got to like basically look at frogs, lizards, and snakes, and these really creepy crawly things. And I got to think about how they've changed over time, which very much excited me. It made me want to follow a career in science. While I was doing that, if you notice, those are like pictures of me in the previous slide where, my mom used to dress me up. And I was a bit of a tomboy growing up, to be honest. I have an older brother who's a doctor. My parents are doctors. I come from generations of doctors, basically. My granddad actually came here to the Mayo Clinic in the 40s and published his thesis over here. So it was actually no surprise to my parents when I said, hey, I don't want to be a doctor. I kind of actually want to do science. And they were so supportive of me. Honestly, without my folks, I wouldn't be able to like be where I am today because they wanted me to follow my heart. And so it's been a long journey because when you think of like how I was and where I was to where I am now, I'm actually studying bats in a museum at the Florida Museum of Natural History. And it's incredible when you think of how far away I am from where I originally started.
That's incredible. So you mentioned that you're from India. How did you get your start then working with bats?
So it was really funny. I was studying all these, herps, so lizards, snakes, and frogs. And all the while, I used to photograph these bats, which are located near my mom's house. There's a massive roost. And usually there are these fruit-eating bats. And they would come to our front yard and eat the mangoes off our mango tree. And I used to be fascinated by it. Like every time I would go home, I'd be taking photos of them. I'm the only person at the bus stop who'd be like looking up, gobsmacked, while these like massive creatures. I mean, they have 6-7 foot wingspans, these fruit-eating bats, which are incredible. It's an incredible sight to see. And so luckily for me, there was a roost near my house. So I had made up my mind. I knew I loved ecology. I knew I loved evolutionary biology. And I said, hey, I want to work on bats. And so I contacted a professor over here, Dr. David Reed, who's at the Florida Museum of Natural History. He's the curator of mammals. And I said, hey, I'm from India and I want to work on bats. And this is my background. And he has been wonderful taking me on and making me an integral part of lab.
That's incredible. Now, when you first got started working with bats, I know you mentioned in the Caribbean, have you traveled anywhere else to study bats throughout your career?
Yes. Yeah, so bats have taken me pretty much everywhere around the world. I didn't know they could be such neat creatures. I had the opportunity to actually do some field work in Peru. And so basically, it was this thing where one of my friends pretty much told me, hey, there's a course which is going to be conducted in Peru. Would you be interested in applying? And I said, of course, yes, please. Because in Peru, you get these brilliant bats. And so there's a picture there where you can see we've used like clotheslines to string up the strings. And we've used carabiners and little, like bags to pretty much carry our bats there. During this coursework, I was one of 20 students chosen from around the world to do this particular course. I had 10 fantastic instructors, and we were pretty much in the middle of the Amazon rainforest for about 10 days with 0 cell phone service. And it was pretty hard field work because for me, I'm used to field work in the Bahamas, but this took me to another level where we were just pretty much batting the whole day. We got up at 5 a.m. and we went to sleep at 2 a.m. and it was one of the best times in my life. The only thing I missed was honestly my cell phone. That's pretty much what I missed.
That's incredible. Now, do you want to share a little bit more about your work currently in the Caribbean and what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about what I do in the Caribbean islands. So the Caribbean is very unique in the sense it's got this really rocky cast limestone landscape. It's very weird when you think of like this beautiful island, like let's say you're in the island of Andros and you see these white sandy beaches with turquoise blue water. You're not picturing them like with caves, but they tend to have caves, and they tend to have really beautiful caves. The ones that you're seeing right now is actually one of the best caves I've ever been to in my life. You can actually see the entrance of the cave, and a lot of the little openings which go out into different areas. And bats are excellent creatures. They can pretty much fly up anywhere and hide anywhere. And when you're looking for them, you have to be very careful about where you go and look for them, because you can pretty much get lost in these caves. So the Caribbean islands are extremely unique. Each island has its unique set of bats. There are some which are generalists, and then there are some which are specialists which are there. They're incredibly neat to study. Cave systems are extremely hard to work in, so you have to be physically fit and used to working in a hot, humid climate. A lot of these caves are really hot. They get to like 110 degrees and above, and especially if you're working in the summer, you're pretty much drenched, and so you have to make sure that you always have food, water, snacks, and a buddy with you. Usually when we're planning these field trips, it takes me pretty much like an entire semester to plan it and go out into the field. And you always have a checklist, which means that you need to be very organized. And it always helps when you have an advisor who will help you out, and they will tell you exactly what you need to do.
That's incredible. And I cannot even imagine being in there at 110 degrees. So what are you looking at with these bats then? What are you studying?
So on your screen, you can actually see these little drawers of bats. So basically I'm in the Florida Museum, right? And these bats are incredible. People who contribute to the museum are also incredible in the sense that some of these bats tend to be very old specimens. They can date back to like the 20s and 30s. And so when you pull out a drawer, a cabinet, and you're looking at these like little bats, and on each tag, you can look at it. Those are the Freetail bats that we see in Florida, and you'll see them all across Texas, even, across the UT Austin Bridge. You'll have a tag associated with each specimen, and it'll tell you all this information about when it was collected, who it was collected by, what was the date, what are its measurements. And this helps us a lot because we can rely pretty much on our past, and we can rely on existing collections. And so with my advisor's help and my committee, I've been using some of our collections, especially stored at the museum, to CT scan them. And so basically like how we also get CT scans, yes, that is a bat. And if you notice, its teeth are really lit up. They're very dense with enamel, and you'll also notice its ears, right, which are very lit up. And so that was just a fun screen that I had up, because you can put different colors on it. But these CT scans can tell us a lot about what is happening with an animal and the changes that take place. And so I think I found my passion in doing that.
That's incredible. Now, let's check in with our interactive sites to see if they have any questions for Aditi today. First, let's head to Charlotte, North Carolina, to our friends at MECED. MECED, what questions do you have for Aditi today?
Which Caribbean countries did you go to?
Oh, neat. So I got a cool question. Which Caribbean islands have I been to? So I've mainly been in the Bahamas, in Andros, Eleuthera, Long Island. We've also been to Nassau, just to kind of like a stopover. Each island is actually unique in itself. They're very different. Each one kind of has its own unique ecosystem per se. So while all of them kind of like look alike, they all tend to be really beautiful and unique. And the way I think about it is, when you're thinking about how they've changed over tens of thousands of years, they used to be connected, and then, they become disjointed. And then again, with rising sea levels, some of them go underwater. And so it would be really neat if I could have gone to a lot more Caribbean islands, because trust me, the minute you go to one of these islands, you're just so struck by it. Yeah, I would love to visit more islands if I could.
That's awesome. Now, Mecca, do you have any other questions for Aditi?
Comment. Yeah, I recommend Dominican Republic.
For sure.
That's it.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
No? Okay,
Do you have a question?
I think that's it for us right now.
Okay, sounds good. So now let's head over to Santa Clarita, California, to our friends at the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley. Sierra Vista Clubhouse, what questions do you have for Aditi today?
What was your favorite bat to study?
Ooh, thank you for asking me that. So that's actually a really tough question, because every time I go to these islands and I see these bats, I pretty much fall in love with every bat. So there's the world's ugliest bat, which is called Centurio senex. It's really sad because the bat is kind of cute, right? And I've got like actually a little 3D model over here. If you notice, like its face is all smushed up, okay? And it's super neat because it eats insects, and it's this really cool bat, and everyone thinks it's just like the world's ugliest bat. And to me, I'm just like, no, that is probably one of the cutest things. If I ever get to see it in real life, it'll probably be one of the cutest things I've ever seen. But I also have a second favorite, which of course is the vampire bat. And so I think anyone who's ever read any book or film or whatever has always like read about vampire bats, and I think they're really maligned. They're actually like really tiny, and they're kind of cute, and they're like everyone maligns bats, and so I think usually the bats which look the worst are like my favorite bats.
And Aditi, just to pop in, we have this slide here from one of your latest field trips.
Yes.
Which bats are these?
Okay, so it's really hard for me to, like, when Casey was asking me to put up slides of bats, it's really hard for me to pick and choose which ones I'm going to use, right? So the one on the right is basically one of the most chilled out bats I've ever met in my life. He basically was very calm. So each bat sort of, it's when you handle them, they react very differently to you, right? Some of them can be very screechy. Some of them, they're just like, oh my God, don't look at me. And there are some of them which are just so calm. And so he was one of my favorite bats. He is one of the toughest bats to catch because usually he's found at the entrance of caves. So by Crotus, they have these beautiful, like, long leaf noses, and they've got wonderful big ears. And as soon as you enter a cave, if you haven't caught it, then you're not going to be able to catch it. The cave that you can see in the background is one of the most pristine caves. It was a privately owned cave, and it's on the island of the Exumas, I think. And the owner was very generous to let us in. And it was beautiful. I mean, it's such a pristine cave. The other guy on the left, looked to me, is just like so cute because he looks like he has a 70s retro hairstyle, and he was also kind of chilled out. The little Tadarida, the ones that you saw in the museum collection with the long tail, they tend to be very tiny, and they're very sneaky. They're really sneaky bats because, like, as soon as you put your hand in, you're probably going to like miss one of them as they fly away from you. So it's been a very big learning experience for me. Learning how to handle these bats. And I think what's good with me is that I've had a lot of help from my friends, from my advisor, from my lab mates who always come with me on these field trips. And, it's not easy field work, but I am very indebted to them because they teach me a lot. Every time you learn something new, and you're hopefully gentler with the animals so that you're not stressing them out. Those are a couple of pictures from our field work. You can see my advisor in the yellow shirt. And he's an incredible bat biologist. If you notice, all of us are carrying our little flash lamps and everything. And we've got Josh and Lauren also in the pictures who helped me doing my field work in the Caribbean. It's just, I've been incredibly lucky to be able to work with a wonderful group of people who've taught me a whole lot, because I didn't know anything about bats. Okay, I didn't know how to handle them. And it's just incredible to work with scientists who know what they're doing.
That's amazing. And first of all, I want to say I love how each of your bat species has like a different personality for you. And I absolutely adore that, because it shows that you spent quite a bit of time with them, that you really thought quite a bit about each of these species. But second of all, I really want to mention how much I love that you mentioned just teamwork and mentorship, because I think that's something that people think that as scientists, we sit in our little lab space and we do our work and everything gets done, perfectly the first time. But really, it is a learning experience, and you have to have so many different people to collaborate and make it happen.
Oh, yes, exactly. I mean, the number of fieldwork fails I've had, apart from lab work fails, is just incredible, because a lot of the times when you're doing your studies, a lot of things don't work out. So I think it's best to just have a calm attitude about it and just have a really good support system. I call my mom every day. Trust me, she is my biggest support system. A lot of the women in my life are very, very supportive. So I think it's incredibly important to have your family behind you and to have your mentor behind you, because they will guide you through very, very rough periods in your life.
That is very true. My mom is also always listening to all of my field day complaints and lab explosions and all the things that she supports me through. So it's definitely family support is a really big thing as well. So I do want to go back to Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley. So Sierra Vista Clubhouse, do you have any other questions for Aditi?
Yes, we have a few more questions.
Perfect.
So, what kind of bats do you study?
So I mostly study basically the Freetail bats, so the ones that you saw in the collection and the ones that you've seen in the pictures. The Caribbean actually doesn't have too many species out there. Okay, there are just a couple of them. But the reason why it's so incredibly important is that these islands face a lot of threats from humans. And so we need to be careful about what we're doing and how we're going into their territory and how we deal with them. I think it's incredibly important for our future, because a lot of these bats, trust me, bats do so many different things. There are fruit-eating bats, which basically help to that's why we have mangoes and peaches. Bats are incredible pollinators. They are excellent at it. They will get their snouts right in the flower, and then you'll see them, and then they've just got it all over them. And the fact that they can fly really long distances, for example, Tidarda brasiliensis, the Brazilian freetail bat, it can fly up to 50 kilometers a night. Do they choose to do that? No, but they're incredible insect eaters. And if you ever come to Gainesville, you can see them at the 3 bat houses that we have over here. You'll see 500,000 bats leave our bat houses. So bats do different things in the environment. And I think it's important to tell people that, hey, they can be different and they're neat. They're weird, but they're neat.
That's amazing. Sierra Vista Clubhouse, do you have any other questions?
Yes, we do. All right. Who's next? Okay.
When you first started, did you ever think of studying any other animals?
Yes. So I actually used to study these really beautiful frogs back home in India, frogs. And I've also studied lizards and snakes, right? And so there was this one time when one of my friends said, hey, do you want to participate in a field trip and go and catch an extremely highly venomous snake? And of course I said, yeah, of course I want to do that. Yes, that's my thing. And so I took my husband along with me, and he of course disappeared from the area because he's a little scared of snakes. But I got to handle, basically cut the scales off a live king cobra, which is an extremely venomous snake. And we got to do it carefully with trained individuals. But that was one of the most exciting experiences. I always thought I would be in herpetology and study herbs. But you know what? My passion lay in bats, and I'm so glad I'm studying bats.
Oh my goodness, your stories are so amazing. I feel like I could just sit all day and listen to your stories. That's so neat. So I want one more question. Do you guys have, does Sierra Vista Clubhouse have one more question for Aditi?
I have a question. Yes, right back there we have one.
Do you have any bats with you right now?
So I have the closest thing with me, which is basically I use CT scans and 3D printers. And with scientists in every Florida school program, which is there in UF, I've been able to take some of these 3D models and use them in classrooms. And I'm trying to partner up and basically have these lesson plans associated with it so that you can pretty much take these anywhere you go. And, kids can handle them. Kids of all ages can handle them. And, you're not handling a super precious specimen. One of the cooler ones that I have, and this is, by the way, sized up. All of these are made bigger. But I think like using modern technology, like a 3D printer, like, look at this. This is a fruit-eating bat. It looks so neat. And it's incredible when you're able to handle something like this and look at it and think about it.
That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, those are the bats that I have. I do not have any other bats.
That is so cool. And it's so neat that you're using 3D printing for that, because I know that's such an up and coming technique that a lot of scientists are using. I know my lab mate uses quite a bit for his own fish studies,
Yes.
for locomotion studies. So that's really cool.
Yes, and you can get it printed at your local library, and I'm hoping to have basically these kits sent out to different schools. So hopefully that will be done in the next couple of months. But I think it's something that can be easily accessible and anyone can access it from wherever you are in the world.
That's so neat. Now I do want to jump over to Casey real quick, because I believe she has a few questions for us from our chat.
I do. Thank you, Olivia and Aditi. This is so fascinating. I love bats. I'm in South Florida as well. And we actually have a bat house here at our house. And I think our highest count of our little tiny bat house was we counted 32 exiting one night. So it was pretty amazing, and we love to see those bats coming back. So with that being said, we do have a question coming in from our chat space from Jacqueline, and she is wondering, what advice does Aditi have for someone who wants to help their local bat populations?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So at least here in Florida, in Gainesville, there's a setup, I think it's called Luby Bat Conservancy. And so basically these people, they have these rehabilitated rescue bat center, and they do incredible work where they actually communicate with the public, and they have like all these bats. You can go and visit them. They're basically like fruit bats, I think from Indonesia and from all over the world. Basically get in touch with your local person wherever you are, because I'm pretty sure that different places will have different centers located with it, and just sort of go and visit them if you can. Usually the best thing I do is follow them on Instagram. Instagram is like one of the best places to kind of like look and see what people are doing. You can actually go up, visit them, you can schedule a tour with them. And these bats, they're fantastic, because some of them, like the fruit eating bats, like they can live up to like 40 years, 41 years. It's like a whole person. I mean, it's incredible. So I think you just get in touch with your local center wherever you are. Bats are also being widely affected by this fungus. And so that's why I think it's super important to study them. And, just sort of get acquainted with the different bats that are around you. Look at what bats are in and around your area and see what they do for your environment.
That's excellent. And I just pulled up Aditi, the Luby Bat Conservancy. I've actually been here before. This place is fantastic. Obviously, we're in Florida, so that's a resource for the Floridians. But this is a good resource if anybody out there visits this website, luby.org. They also have links here for bat houses, events, adopt a bat. And if you click on their bat houses resources, this is a really great, they've got a little PDF instruction if you want to get into bat houses in your area. And I think this is such a great resource out there. I think you can even buy pre-made bat houses on Amazon.
Yes, you can.
As well.
Yes, you can. And the neat thing that I've actually done with my research, actually just kind of associated with this, I have a listening device. I think I can just pull it out from like here. So basically, I had like an Anabat walkabout, which is pretty much this device that you can use to like listen to bats. You see that? It comes with like batteries and everything. And so it's this little device that pretty much allows you to listen to bats, and you can identify which species is out there. I now know that they have like these little devices that you can pretty much attach to your cell phone. And, it'll tell you, like, I think there are even programs out there that kind of like automatically identify it. But I mean, I physically identify the species. I think it's neat to know which species are in your backyard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that just reminded me, I did say I'm kind of an amateur bat aficionado, but this is a resource that I really like. If you go to batcon.org, it's the Bat Conservation International, and they really do a fantastic job talking about all the different species that are found in the US in particular, but all over the world. They also have a great e-newsletter that you can sign up for. And I know that these folks also broadcast, and the cave in Texas is escaping my mind.
The Austin Bridge Cave. Yeah.
They do a live stream of that every year.
BatCon is incredible. I recently met some people, John Flanders from there there's a bat conference that happens every year. And so they have some incredible talks. They look at wind turbines and how they affect bats. And they've been doing some incredible research. So they do some really good work. And they have grants and opportunities for young students. If you want to study and like work with them, you should go check it out.
Excellent. So again, I'll pull up that website just real quick so our viewers can see that. So it's batcon.org for that resource. And the other one was luby.org. Now I do have one more question from the chat. And just to let our interactive sites know, we will come back to you for another round of questions. So just hang tight. Another question from our chat is about the 3D printed skulls. Yes. How long do those take to print out?
So it really depends on the material, okay? I'm trying to see if I have any other materials here, but it depends on the material. So now if you're thinking of printing it at your local library, there are ones that you can kind of pretty much get printed in a day, and it costs you like 12 to 15 bucks. Pretty much, it's just your charge for the plastic and the weight. And so these files are available online on Sketchfab or Morphosource. Usually if they're on Sketchfab, they're easy to download and they're great for educators. We found that a lot of educators and teachers are like all downloading these things. You can get them printed yourself. And so depending on the material and how long that really determines how long it takes to print. Because this thing, I think took a couple of days. I actually love the printing resources on the UF campus. And so I think I've visited about like 2 or 3 of them. And Marston Science Library, I think, does a great job. There's also one at the Nanoscale Research Facility, as well as the Fab Lab, which is incredible. They have, printed out these beautiful ones. And I just think the material is great. Kids can handle it. You can pretty much like throw this, it's not going to break. So it's great. It's great when you get sturdy material. I also have some incredible undergrads who have helped me with this. They will like literally help me take off the struts. And I have another undergrad with me who's an artist, and she helps me drop these bats and, put them together.
Awesome. And that is all the questions I have from the chat for now. Back to you, Olivia.
Well, great questions, everyone. So Aditi, can we talk a little bit about some of the realities? So for instance, how much can someone expect to make?
Yeah, so I think, okay, to be fairly honest, if you're looking to make money, like, really big bucks, science is probably not going to be the place where you're going to do it. So that's what I remember my parents, like I told you, I come from a family of doctors. I come from generations of doctors. And, usually in India, you have a stable job. You're either an engineer or you're a doctor. And I chose to do science. I mean, it was pretty much following my passion. I know the reality. I have extremely supportive family. But here's the deal. The slide will show you how much like an average scientist, I think, at UF makes, right? Which is, I think, 174,000. This is according to Google. The thing is, when you are trying to study for your PhD, you pretty much get paid to study. So you will either be a teaching assistant or you can apply for fellowships and you can actually get paid to study. So I teach and I get paid at the same time, as well as I can do my studies. And so I think a lot of people aren't aware that, you can actually do this. I mean, if you're passionate about doing something and you really love science, there is a way for you to do it and you don't go into debt. I mean, you earn enough to pay your rent, to eat some food, to feed yourself, and, grab the occasional cup of coffee with your friend. So yeah, I think you should definitely look around. Different schools have different policies, but at least at UF, I know you can apply to be a teaching assistant, and your department will support you.
Absolutely. No, I love how you mentioned that it really is like when you're first starting out, like I've never heard of somebody making $170,000 doing what I'm doing, but I'm sure it's out there.
I'm sure it's out there. Yeah. I mean, you just have to work your way up. Sometimes, you don't need to earn that much to be happy. I think I'm okay with that. I have a very supportive husband who's also like, who sees me like when I struggle. And so my family helps me out a lot, but usually, I'm able to budget. So if you're able to budget, you should be good.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of my professors at the University of South Florida always says that you really learn how to budget on budget really well as a grad. I was going to say, I was like, they might not understand that one.
Yes.
But yeah, so you really do learn how to budget really well. And it's like, if you're doing what you love and you're studying what you love, you learn how to make it work. And it helps to have supportive family and people who can help you get through there.
Of course it does. And really, I mean, it's honestly your day-to-day activities, what you do, because you get to teach. And when you teach, you get to teach young minds, like you're telling undergrads about what you do. I think it's almost like having a job, but it's not like having a job. It's not quite, because like I'm so happy with what I do. It really makes me happy. And I think it's important for you to be happy in your life. So it's one of the few things where I just never get tired of it. If somebody always wants a bat fact or something, I'm always ready to go.
Well, it's definitely very clear that you're extremely passionate about this, and I love how much energy and excitement you bring towards your studies. It's so inspiring to see how much you love what you do.
Thank you.
So now I want to ask, we here at EarthEcho believe that we can act now for a sustainable future. How does your work contribute to a sustainable future?
Wow, that's a great question. So actually, over this last semester, this is really like hit home for me, right? Like science communication, your broader impacts. And so with the scientists in every Florida school, which is associated with the Thompson Earth Sciences Institute, basically they've allowed me to be part of this incredible program where they connect scientists to schools in every Florida. Pretty much like school. I've been to a school recently in Boynton Beach, and it was about a 2-hour drive from Gainesville. And I got to talk to a class for the entire day. And so they had different sections. And I came in, I rolled in, I had my bat skulls, and I was like, okay, my name is Aditi, I study bats, hello. And I got so many incredible questions. Honestly, I've taught undergrads, I've taught graduate students, and there's nothing scarier than going into a classroom full of middle schoolers, and they're really listening to you, they really want to hear about what you do in science. And they ask you such incredible questions. And so at the end of the day was almost over. There was this little girl at the back who was like in this little blue jacket, and she was like hanging on to my every word. She like asked questions and stuff. And at the end of the day, she comes up to me and she hands me that little note, which you can see. It said something like, "You're the best science I've ever met," or something like that. And it super touched me because I kind of saw the impact that it had on students. Maybe there are little kids out there who are like, oh, I don't know if I can do science because, maybe I don't know how to get into it or what to do. Yeah, you need to study to get into it. But you know what, at the end of the day, if you can just spread that message a little more. I've got to do a lot of outreach events with the Florida Museum where, our lab basically studies bats and lice. And we pretty much, like, you can see a picture of us right there with, all the bat skulls and some of the museum specimens. So you just meet people from all over. We did a bilingual event called Viva Museum, where we got to talk to people from different walks of life. And one of my friends, she speaks such beautiful Spanish. And like, I speak several languages. My Spanish is like so terrible. And she was basically telling them about like what we do. And it was incredible to see that impact. I think the Scientists in Every Florida School is like one of the great programs also that we work with. And I'm hoping to do a lot more with them next semester, where we pretty much go to different schools and, talk about our science. I think communication is very important. Telling people about what we do, talking to kids, talking to parents, talking to people of every age. So there's a video of me out there. That's me. Yeah, that's not real time. It's sped up. And so it's me setting up one of our museum events, and it was called Not So Scary Science, which is pretty much like a Halloween event where you take something that is supposedly scary, like, bats. People think bats are very, very scary. And that's me like setting up my whole table. I had to set up like the net and everything and like go there and, I happen to do that one by myself, but usually I have a lot of friends who come with me, and we just get to talk to people. And people also have incredible stories to share. And so I think connecting with people is super important. It's great when you see kids, like kids are never scared of anything. Like, I had like little 5-year-olds. I don't think they were scared so much as their parents. um, they're like, oh yeah, bats. And I'm like, yeah, bats are so neat. And so it's really good to kind of see the impact that you have on different people, and tell people that, bats have different things that they do in the environment. For example, some of them, they need to go and like feed on cattle. Some of them just need to eat insects. Some of them need to eat fruits. And this is how, they're really important to our ecosystem.
That's fantastic. I love that so much. Now let's check back in with our interactive sites to see if they have any more questions. First, let's head to Charlotte, North Carolina, to our friends at MECED. MECED, what questions do you have for DT today?
Are any of the bats you study dangerous?
So I think that's actually, it's a great question. I'll tell you what, usually doing field work is incredibly dangerous. You have to be very well trained. You have to have your rabies shots, because none of the bats that I deal with like have rabies, but we all have to have like, you have to get it, I think, over a period of a month, where you have like 3 different sets of shots which are timed. You have to be incredibly careful. You have to be trained in how to handle these bats, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with a wild animal. And usually when you see something and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cute, but it's still a wild animal. And so you need to be very careful about how you're affecting it, how you're affecting its environment. When I did field work in Peru, honestly, it was a little scary for me because I had never been there. And some of these bats, they're like that size. They're massive. And so I've got a fun field work story. There was like this massive net, and one of these bats had like kind of chewed into it, right? And it was an Artibius, which is like this really big bat. And so I'm trying to get it out of the net, and the bat has kind of got itself fully tangled up. And so I had to ask my friend, I was like, Sandra, can you please help me? And, in my broken Spanish, I'm like, please help me. And so she took off her glove to kind of get the net out of, the head. And like, she's holding it. She's holding this bat, right? And then I blew on its face. And I swear, the bat like opened its eyes like this. And I was like, Sandra, give me the bat. And so I immediately took the bat back, put it in a bat bag. And yeah, it was fighting. So you need to be very, very careful when you're dealing with these animals, because the other thing is you don't want to hurt them. And so it helps to be incredibly well trained. It helps to have scientists around you who know what they're doing, because they will teach you how to hold a bat, how to measure it, how to not stress it out. So fieldwork can be extremely dangerous. I've been in caves where, so I'm a small person. And so I can easily like fit into caves and, kind of like go in. Sometimes there are like snakes there. Sometimes there are massive crickets. And so you have to sort of contain your screams, because otherwise they will get freaked out. So you need to be able to be a very calm person. And also a lot of the caves, they have several different entrances and openings, and you can get lost. And some of them have water in them. And so it's incredibly important to be aware of where you are and what you're doing, and to have somebody else with you. Never do field work alone. Always let somebody know, let your mom know where you are. Because at some point, if you have a sprained ankle or something, it's important to have help and have first aid. So field work can be kind of dangerous, but I think it also helps to train and to learn. And the only way you learn is if you keep doing it. And so trust me, I've had to get over so many of my fears. Like I used to be such a scaredy cat, and nobody would like picture that I was doing this with my life. Trust me.
That's such a fantastic point. And I love that you like mentioned like just having to get over certain fears and moving forward. And really, and I think also the point about field work is also super important. And I think even if you're going in your backyard, I know like you don't have to be in a foreign country working in very complex cave systems. Like even if you're just like in the woods behind your house, it's always good to have people who know what they're doing and who can help you out when you're doing that. So I love that.
And it's incredibly important because bats, like, they have certain like things associated with them. If you ever see a fallen bat, do not pick it up. They're usually in the winter, sometimes it gets very cold and they've just either, if they're diseased or something, don't pick them up. Call like your local authority to help you out. And usually in the winter, they tend to kind of just hang around places. So they will fly away if they need to, but just don't trouble them. Just leave them be.
Great. Well, Mecca, do you have any other questions for Aditi?
Yes, we do. What type of advice would you give a person seeking to better understand how to navigate life from obviously from a perspective of a bat biologist such as yourself?
Wow, that's a very deep question. I think the only advice I would actually have is something my parents have taught me, is to sort of like love what you do and work hard at it. So my dad, he's turned 74, right? He's a doctor and he goes to work every day. When I say every day, I mean Monday to Sunday. He is incredibly important to me in my life. I see like all my family members, they work really hard to be where they're at. It's not like I was the best at school, trust me. Like even I had grades which troubled me like throughout my life, especially like in India when you're studying, you do your second language and your third language, and I was never great at it, and I'd always just have to work hard. So I just say push forward, work hard. It's never the easiest thing, but keep at it, because at some point you will figure out where you want to be. I think that's what most graduate students do. They just like continuously do it every day, and so just work hard and hopefully find something that you love to do. If you love something with art, like work with art and science. There's so many incredible opportunities out there, and I love telling people about it.
That's fantastic. Mecca, do you have one more question for Aditi today?
Yes. How many years of dedication did it take for you to become a batologist?
A batologist, yes. I think they're officially called chiropterologists, but I love batologists. Batologist is my favorite thing. So basically, I'm in my third year of my PhD. I pretty much knew nothing about handling bats before this. I've worked for 6 years in ecology and evolutionary biology. So yeah, that's when I kind of figured out before that I was like, oh yeah, maybe I can do a career in research because I've stuck around this long. I just have to work hard and show up every day. But I think it really depends on like where you're going and what you're doing. You don't have to work on bats. If you like something else, if you like sharks or if you like snails, there's an incredible world out there. And I think it's pretty important to, study these different things.
That's great advice. Now let's head over to Santa Clarita, California, to our friends at the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley. Sierra Vista Clubhouse, what questions do you have for Aditi?
Sorry about that. Okay, so the first question we have is back there.
My question is, has a bat ever harmed you or endangered you, or at least tried to?
Yes, bats try to bite you all the time. They don't want to be caught. They don't want to do anything with you. They want to have nothing to do with you. Honestly, they have like very sharp teeth. So if you even look at these like models, right? Like, I mean, this is the fruit-eating bat, so it's not too bad. But they've got very, very sharp teeth. And usually we're wearing gloves and everything, protective gear. But sometimes, your hands right here, like when you're holding the bat, like especially in the webbing of your fingers, they invariably get turned around and they will try to bite you through your glove. The only way to get them off is to pretty much blow on their face. And so you'll be blowing at them so as to not harm them. But they will finally let go at some point. Even the really tiny microbats that I study have such sharp teeth. So I think it's incredibly important to be careful about what you're doing. I've had several bats that have like tried to like bite me. Bats also have an incredible sense of smell. They can actually see, and usually, like let's say if you've captured a bat and you have its baby by mistake, and like the mama can actually fly around and find her little pup wherever it is. So there was one that kind of like was dive bombing us because like she knew we had the baby. We kept the baby down. She was not happy with us. She finally found it. But bats, no bats, like just be very, very careful because it it hurts. Even through the gloves. And like I have good gloves, trust me, but they always hurt.
Wow, that's wild. I definitely would not think too much about that, but then again, I've never caught bats
tiny
before.
bats.
So yeah,
They just like get you in the, especially in the web of your, and like if you notice, I also have bat rings. Yes, they always get you in the web of your, and it hurts. It hurts like crazy.
See here, Mr. Clubhouse. Do you have any other questions for Aditi?
Yes, so we have one more right over here.
Okay.
How many bat species are there?
Oh wow, that is a great question. So I just went to a bat conference and they told me 1,411 species of bats. It was actually at 1,407 and then 1,411 as of October. So I could be wrong because it can be counting. They're so incredibly diverse. They may eat insects, they may eat fruits, they may do something else, they may pollinate, but imagine the amount of species that we have in this world. It's crazy, and it's crazy that they have to always look so different. I just think they're neat. They're weird and neat.
That's so cool. Sierra Vista Clubhouse, you have one more question for Aditi?
Yes, so we have one more over coming from this.
How big are the bats?
So the bats that I study usually tend to be this size. They're like little micro bats. So it kind of helps, right? The ones that you'll see in India or in Central America or something, they tend to be like very, very big. They can have up to 6-7 foot wingspans. So it really depends on the bat, whether they're old world bats or new world bats. And I wouldn't want to mess with the wrong bat, whether they're tiny or whether they're big. But I usually deal with the tiny bats. They're so sweet. They all look so sweet. And then, one day you'll have them screeching at you and you're like, I'm not even looking at you. You're just screeching at me. It's going to be okay.
No, I think all graduate students have a love-hate relationship with their organisms on those things. That's fantastic. Well, those are all wonderful questions. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, and a big thank you to Aditi for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You can keep in touch with Aditi and follow her on social media. Also, be sure to check out our partners as scientists in every Florida school. This is a fantastic program. I'd also like to thank the STEMExplore partner sites and classrooms that have tuned in live today, especially our interactive sites. Great questions, everyone. EarthEcho has some exciting opportunities coming up. STEMExplore will continue this Thursday as we feature women in STEM careers with our virtual career connections. Visit earthecho.org to register. Stay tuned as STEMExplore will continue to offer virtual career connections with female professionals in STEM careers. Look to our website, sign up for a newsletter as we continue programming in early 2020. Explore EarthEcho Expeditions. What's the catch? Next month, EarthEcho will release a suite of classroom materials exploring fisheries and sustainability. All materials are free for teachers to download. Join us and the University of Plymouth for a free virtual field trip celebrating the release of these materials on January 7th. Did you know that you can become a citizen scientist with EarthEcho's Water Challenge program? The EarthEcho Water Challenge builds public awareness and involvement in protecting water resources around the world by engaging citizens to conduct basic monitoring of their local water bodies. Visit our website to learn more. Be sure to stay connected with EarthEcho on our social media channels and our website, earthecho.org. And thank you again to our wonderful STEMExplore mentor, Aditi, and to United Technologies for their tremendous support of our programming. On behalf of EarthEcho International, thank you for joining us and keep exploring.
Thank you.
Thank you.